You're listening to Potty Mouth Radio, the home of movies, music, television, and comedy. The following podcast contains spoilers and rude words. We watch a thing. We watch a thing. Hello, and welcome back to We Watched a Thing with Billy and Dave. How you doing, mate?
I do fine. How do you do?
Mate, I do exceptionally well. And this is going to be a fun week as we're going to talk about a few different things. First up, we're going to talk about The Fall Guy. Just a quick spoiler-free review, though. If you want to hear us talk more about this, head on over to Movie Reviews in 20 Qs, also on the Potty Mouth Network, where Dave and I just guested. And you can hear us bullshit on about this movie for a full hour doing 20 weird and wonderful questions about it. But let's get into it. The Fall Guy is a 2024 American action comedy film directed by David Leitch and written by Drew Pearce, loosely based on the 1980s TV series about stunt performers. It stars Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Hannah Waddingham, Teresa Palmer, Stephanie Sue, and Winston Duke. And what is it about, mate?
Stunt guy has a horrible accident and is forced to retire and become a valet, only to be called back by a movie producer because his ex-girlfriend, who is now a director on her directorial debut, has come into some difficulties on her film, and apparently only he can sort them out. And so he has to fly to Australia and hang around Australian landmarks and sort out said problems.
Yes. Now, you and I already know what each other thought of this film because, as I mentioned, we just recorded with Sam, and I just got to say, you're fucking wrong, man. This movie was so good it slapped. I really, really liked this movie a lot. I'm very strong on it.
Perfectly fine.
I think that you and I are flipped on the two Australian set, rom-coms that have come out this year. You're the one who you're super high on Anyone But You, which I thought was fine.
I feel like we're in Fast 10 territory all over again, where you're just going, it's crazy action, I love it, and
but
ignoring the fact that there's all sorts of dumb shit.
Like, no spoilers, but I thought the action was really well done, and I know you agree, because that's one thing you mentioned is that the stunts are really great.
It's David Leitch.
But
the one thing I knew going in is that this was going to be a big screen action extravaganza with really, really good stunt work.
Yeah.
Because he is an ex-stunt guy, and his entire film, even the one fucking black hole in his filmography, which is Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
Still had good stunt work in it, even though every other aspect of that film is dog shit. It's still good from the stunt business. So I knew this was going to be impressive on the stunt front.
Yeah, but that is, like I was saying, look, I think the action is great, and I actually think that the comedy is really good. I think almost all of the jokes land, which is very rare in a film like this. But what really makes this film for me is actually the chemistry between those two leads. I'm not generally a massive fan of Emily Blunt. I think that she's...
Ooh,
well, here's the thing.
Words.
All right. I want you to name one comedic or romantic role that you've seen Emily Blunt crush it in.
Devil Wears Prada.
All right, I haven't seen Devil Wears Prada. I think that she's really...
Into the Woods.
I haven't seen Into the Woods. I think that she can be a really great dramatic actress. I like her in A Quiet Place.
Sicario's good.
Sicario's fantastic. I was not expecting to like her in this because I do find generally...
Mary Poppins Returns.
I don't like her as Mary Poppins. And this is part of my problem.
You've seen that and you don't like her?
Yes. I find that Emily Blunt tends to have a very hard quality, which is fine. Okay. But I found her so distractingly different to Julie Andrews, which it's not her fault.
But Julie Andrews is quite cold in that role as well.
Yeah, but Julie Andrews
is cold,
so
aloof.
Hot.
It's
I tell you, man. Watch it back. You'll be shockingly surprised at how attractive Julie Andrews was back in the day, man. Like,
I
it's
have seen
next
that
level.
movie innumerable times, and that has never been my response. No, but Mary Poppins as a character is quite a cold, aloof character.
I disagree. I disagree.
Seemingly immortal.
She's not the devil. I mean, yeah, okay, she's immortal. She's
but
quite caring
she
in that
not
film,
a
though.
warm. She doesn't hug those kids or anything.
I
She
disagree.
is
Watch it back.
cold. I don't need to. I've seen it thousands of times. I don't need to, and I know I'm right.
I don't love Emily Blunt in that role, but I really
Right.
liked her in this, and I thought that her and Ryan
Weirdly,
Gosling.
the only thing I like in Lin-Manuel Miranda in at all.
I thought that her and Ryan Gosling had really great chemistry, and I thought
100%,
really good
I agree with
comedic
you there.
timing.
Yep.
I thought that he was fantastic. Even like, the scene where he's crying in the car listening to Taylor Swift, it's played as a joke, and yet it
It's so
does
funny.
actually work as a really good dramatic beat as well. And he plays it so well that it's able
Testament
to
to the two of them, not the script, I might say.
because it's able. Oh, I disagree. I think it's both, but it's able to be so funny and still make you care about them. So I actually thought that this movie, Big Tick, did everything that I wanted from it.
See, I think that's the only thing where we really differ is on the script, because we both agree that their chemistry is great. Individually, they are both great. I think the reason that all of these beats and moments work is because of their chemistry, not because the writing is. I think the writing on this film is pretty mediocre at best.
Interesting.
I think the plot is predictable and almost to the point of being comedically predictable. It feels like an episode of a 90s TV show.
I mean, I
but
kind of.
they make it work. They are so good, both of them. That both of them has so much charisma, and they have so much chemistry together that they kind of elevate and carry what would otherwise, I think, be almost a bad film.
See, I don't think the film would be bad. I guess I do agree with you in that, yeah, the script is probably predictable. It didn't bother me, though. I don't actually see that as a bad thing necessarily.
I didn't come out of it hating it. I enjoyed my time.
I do agree that in the hands of different actors, I don't think the film would be as good. But I think that's just because so much carries on you believing that these two care about each other. And I think buying their motivation, yes, a lot of that is done through their actions rather than the screenplay. But it all worked for me. I was a big fan. I do want to ask you this. I've listened to a few reviews, including like our great friends Paul and Wayne over at The Countdown. They, particularly Paul, was saying that he feels like this is much more of a rom-com than it is an action comedy.
Yep.
I disagree. This has some great action set pieces. I would definitely call this an action comedy film first, with a romance element to it, which, I mean, every good action, I would say the same thing about The Mummy, for example. That's an action film first with a romantic subplot.
Yep.
I'd say the same about this.
I agree. I do agree. I was surprised when I came out of this at kind of Paul's position on it, because I get that you've got rom-com sort of elements in there, but I don't think remotely that this is a rom-com first and foremost. It's an action comedy, and there just happens to be a male and a female lead that get together at the end, which, as you say, is the case with probably most action comedies.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this is a spoiler-free review, and
This is no
I
more
wouldn't
a
even
rom-com than
consider
True
that a
Lies
spoiler.
is.
I think that's pretty obvious going into this, that the two of them end up together at the end.
Nothing about the plot of this can be a spoiler. 5 seconds into this movie, I could have written down how it was going to play out. There is no chance. You cannot spoil this film.
Yeah,
but it's no more a rom-com than True Lies is.
Yeah. Well, I'm an 8 out of 10 of this. It's a hard recommend from me. How are you scoring it?
I'll say 7, but it's a weak 7.
Yeah, okay.
I enjoyed the things I enjoyed. I really enjoyed, which is the two of them. What little we saw of Aaron Taylor Johnson, Hannah Waddington, or whatever her name is enjoyable. You've got a few other people. You've got one of the guys from Empty Pockets, for Australians who remember that comedy tour. There's a few, there's some nice stuff in there, and the stunt work is exemplary. It is absolutely amazing. Some of the set pieces, as you would expect. Not only is it directed by an ex-stunt coordinator who we know can nail his shit.
Yeah.
I mean, leaving aside Hobbs and Shaw as a kind of paying the bills probably didn't have a whole lot of control over that franchise. Let's face it, we know what Vin Diesel and co are like. So if we ignore that, his filmography is pretty exemplary. Atomic Blonde is amazing. Deadpool 2 is as good as the first. I will die on that hill. Bullet Train is
fine.
Probably the most some of the most fun I've had in a cinema in the last 10 years. It is fun from start to finish. He knows how to do fun action, and he knows how to do really good action set pieces. So you would expect that to be good, and it is.
Yeah.
We know that Rygoz and Emily Blunt have great chemistry because they've been doing the rounds on the whole Barbenheimer thing, presenting at awards, and every time they get up on stage, they are hilariously funny.
Yeah.
The way they riff off each other. You get the sense they're probably good mates in real life, and that comes through. That every time they're on screen together is fabulous.
Yeah.
The only downside to this film is the fact that the plot is completely predictable, which is not a small thing. That's, it's the story. It's a big part of it. But I don't know. I'm a 7.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
7 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'd say if you like action comedies, go see this on a big screen. It's a fun time. Don't expect it to be the next big thing action comedy wise, because it's not.
Yeah.
But you won't hate your time with it.
All right. Well, let's leave it there because, as mentioned, if you want to hear us talk at length on this film, you can go check out this week's episode of Movie Reviews in 20 Qs, where we spoke with Sam. Speaking of Movie Reviews in 20 Qs, also this week, we had Liz from that show over on the hunt for the perfect album, counting down a playlist of our favorite songs with names in the title. That was exceptionally fun. So go check that out. And we'll be putting up a vote in the Potty Mouth.
I was going to say, please go listen to that because there will be a vote coming, so you need to listen to it.
So join the Potty Mouth Radio listener community on Facebook if you're not already a member so that you can vote.
That's the thing.
Yeah, because that's going to be good fun. And a last plug before we move on as well. This Friday, so tomorrow, our Dungeons & Dragons pod is finally going live.
That's right.
So,
oh my God, I can't believe it's finally
if you want to hear us roll some die and have some fun, it's a good time. So
we've had so much fun making that.
Yeah. So the first 2 episodes of that will drop tomorrow. So that's with the aforementioned Paul from The Countdown, Liz from Movie Reviews in 20 Qs, us two, and Drew Hallam from Real Feels is our Dungeon Master. So please download that tomorrow when it drops. I
would listen to that just to listen to Drew's voice. It's like velvet honey dripping over your ears.
All right, well, moving on. Let's do a little bit of what else we've been watching. So I want to kick it off with
some stuff.
I want to kick it off with a recent horror film that I don't think you've seen yet. So again, let's keep everything spoiler free. This can be a little spoiler free.
I've listened to this, and I think you should as well.
But Late Night with the Devil, which is made by 2 Australian blokes, Colin and Cameron Cairns. And it stars David Dasmalkian, Laura Gordon, Ian Bliss, Faisal Bazi, and Josh Kong-Tart. It's I really, really dug this. I went into it knowing very little about it.
Is this a Shudder original?
It is a Shudder original, yeah. Right. But it did have a theatrical release, which is where I saw it at the cinemas. Was not... I don't know what I was expecting. I had not seen a trailer. I knew that it was about, a late night talk show host. I didn't realize that the entire film, and this is not a spoiler to say
based on a true story?
I don't think so, no. But I didn't realize that this is a found footage film. So the entire film is presented as an episode of a 70s late night talk show. So it's what supposedly you are watching is, the master footage of what went to air that night. And so it literally, they have fucking nailed the production design of this film. It feels like you are watching a late night talk show. The 70s aesthetic is done so perfectly. The acting is great. When it does take a spooky turn, look, I never found the film incredibly scary, but I mean, it's really, I think it does an immaculate job of balancing the tone it does, because keeping with the aesthetic of the 70s and all being presented as this actually went to air, it would be very easy for the spooky stuff to come off incredibly cheesy, and it never does. So while it never actually fully scared me, I think that it balances its tone really well. I can't recommend this film enough. At the moment, it's cracked my top 5 of the year. I think it's real. If nothing else, watch it for the production design. It's stunning.
I'm super keen. Even from just the written premise of it, I was keen, and everything I've heard since has made me. He is so underrated.
Oh man, he
I mean,
crushes it in this. I can't think of
how
what
he
else I've seen him
didn't come
in,
up
but
in our fucking character actors is beyond me.
he absolutely
because
crushes it in this role. And more than that, the
he
young
is
girl
always amazing, and he is so. I mean, compare this to. I don't know if you've watched Miracle Workers. You probably haven't because it's on TV. But he's hilarious in that. Then he's in fucking Oppenheimer, Last Voyage of the Demeter, which we've talked about. He's in fucking The Weird Owls. He's in Ant-Man and the fucking Wasp, Quantumania, for Christ's sake. He is in everything, and he is always so different.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, not only is he exceptional, best child performance I've seen in a very, very, very long time. Ingrid Torelli, a young girl.
Oh, that's a big call.
Young girl from Canberra, actually, who plays a possessed girl, a young girl who, you know, no spoilers, but trailer gives it all away. She's possessed, and she's like the main guest and attraction in this episode. She absolutely crushes it. She is fantastic in this film, and I can't wait to see what she does next.
Abigail or what else did we see recently that had a killer fucking child
I think she's right up there with Alicia Weir from Abigail.
I'm gonna watch this.
I'll be really curious to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah. All right. Why don't you tell us about something you've been watching?
Alrighty. All right. First up, gonna have to go with the best thing that I've watched probably in the last maybe 6 months, and that's the TV version of Fallout.
Okay.
So spin-off, obviously,
I haven't watched it. I've never played the game
video
either,
game series.
Yeah.
I have not significantly played a Fallout game probably since the first one. I did play Fallout 3 and 4, but I didn't finish them. Other stuff got in the way, and et cetera, et cetera. But I've always loved the world. I love the aesthetic of this society that's kind of been in bunkers since the Cold War. So everything's got a bit of a 1950s feel to it, and then kind of emerging into a post-apocalyptic world where you've got, you know, all sorts of shit mutated by radiation and all the rest of it. And I think they've nailed that aesthetic. You've got the same songs in the soundtrack that were in the games and in the marketing of the games. All these 1950s.
Yeah.
I don't want to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
It's so emotive, and I don't know if it's because I am kind of familiar with the world of the games, even if I didn't play them to completion. They were in their heyday when I was working in the industry, so they loomed large. They were one of the big franchises, along with GTA and the other shit that I was working on. But they've nailed that.
So let me ask, in your opinion, is it better than The Last of Us as far as video game adaptations go?
Oh, that's really tough, because I have not played any of The Last of Us. I haven't played either of the games. I have nothing to base it on other than the fact that it's just a really good TV show.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to
the adaptation. Yeah.
The adaptation, but it's a really good show. Whereas this, from that aspect, I kind of have to put this ahead of it, just because I know how well they've nailed the translation of this world and the feel and everything about it. But that's no slight on either. I mean, unlike the 30 years preceding, we're now getting things that translate video games really, really well to screen. So far, until Borderlands comes out, fingers crossed, it's only the small screen. But it is a marked difference to everything that's gone before it, because both of those shows are fantastic. I would highly recommend Fallout.
Yeah, right.
Whether you've played the game or not, you can know nothing about the game. This is still a fantastic science fiction TV show.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
Great performances, good cast. Walton Goggins is amazing. Ella Purnell is perfect. I loved every second of this.
Nice. That's the end of new stuff for me.
Okay.
But I do have a rewatch that I rewatched, which if you haven't
Nice.
seen it, and I know that you will have seen it. I'm not talking to you here, Dave, but to the listeners.
I'm a psychopath. I've seen everything. Don't judge your listeners by my lack of social life.
As part of my Bachelor of Creative Writing at the moment, the unit I'm studying is Gothic literature. And so this week I had to rewatch Nosferatu, F.W. Murnau's 1922 classic.
29. Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Which is an exceptional
Perfect
film.
timing.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've seen it before. I know that you would have seen it before, but it is a silent German expressionist film. So I know that there'll be listeners out there who haven't seen it. If you haven't, it's amazing how well it holds up, and I'm sure that you know about its history as well, Dave. I think what makes it the most interesting to me is that it's an unauthorized adaptation of Dracula. It was the first ever film adaptation, but they didn't have the rights, so the characters have different names. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But when Bram Stoker's wife, who was still alive, found out about it, she ordered that it be destroyed because it was unauthorized. They hadn't gone through the estate. So the original cut was destroyed. Every version you see of Nosferatu today has been reassembled by film historians. So there's a million different versions of it.
That's
right. So
tragic.
there's a million different versions of it with different scores and soundtracks as well. The original soundtrack is entirely lost, which is really sad. But there are some great different versions out there. So, I mean, if you've never seen it, just pick any version. You could honestly watch the movie 10 times from 10 different distributors and it'll be different. But it's amazing how well it holds up. Some of the very, very, very early special effects that are in that film, double negatives and, the very early stop trick examples, like it's
fascinating to watch from today's viewpoint.
100%. So if you've never seen F.W. Murnau's 1922 Nosferatu, go check it out for sure. So
do and let us know what you think of it. Murnau is a lot of those early kind of silent filmmakers. Their work, you can appreciate how amazing it would have been at the time, but it kind of you see from today's viewpoint that you're looking at it as a curio. It's an interesting thing to watch, but it doesn't work through today's eyes. Murnau's films, I think, not just Nosferatu. Sunrise is an incredible film.
Yeah,
and it still works today. It still brings me almost to tears watching it. It's an amazing film. He was hands down one of the greatest filmmakers of all time in terms of understanding what the medium could accomplish, even given the limited palette and tools that he had at the time.
Yeah.
And Nosferatu, I love Dracula. I love Frankenstein. I love all that entire era of horror films.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of them have... They're a bit slicker, maybe, than Nosferatu. But I don't think they have the emotional impact that Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Nosferatu, that maybe it's just that German expressionism and the Dutch angles.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
It's the look of it, but I think it works better and is less hokey than the American horror films from 10 years later.
Yeah.
So 100% check it out if you haven't seen it. If no other reason than to kind of give you a base yardstick for when we get Eggers' film in December.
Yeah, I'm really curious
comes.
to see how that goes because, of course, that is a remake.
My number one most anticipated of the year, unlike Billy's most anticipated, which less said about that.
I am really curious to see how that goes because even just like the idea of remaking Nosferatu as opposed to adapting Dracula again. Which is not the first time it's been done. There was another remake of Nosferatu in the 70s again by a German filmmaker,
Crazy Klaus Kinski.
But I'm
good film,
really,
but it's mental.
Yeah, but I'm really, really curious to see where Eggers goes with it, how far he departs from it. I'm presuming it's going to be presented in black and white. I know
I
nothing
think it's
about
going to
it.
be German expressionism.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah,
dialed up to 11, which
Yeah.
is exactly what I'm hoping for.
yeah.
And Lily, I could rant about how excited I am for the next 10 weeks, but Lily Rose Depp, Bill Skarsgård. Oh my god, if you've seen the fucking photos of Bill Skarsgård in makeup with the fingers and everything,
Done up like
he
Max
looks
Shrek. Yeah.
fucking amazing. Oh my god.
All right. Why don't you take us home, Dave?
Alrighty. I'll very quickly touch on a horror film, and then I'll talk about a TV series, and then I'll be done. On recommendation from one of our very, very, very dear friends, Paul Brazulla from The Countdown, I did check out Vermines, aka Infested, which is a horror, another Shudder original, I think, horror film, which is, I mean, it's literally Attack the Block, but with spiders.
Yeah.
It's set in a kind of a lower socioeconomic tenement building, apartment block, and idiot main character buys a spider in a cage that gets out of the cage and then somehow breeds, and spiders go everywhere, and it becomes a kind of, how do we get out of this fucking block? And it's been locked down by the government, and there's spiders everywhere. Look, it has some very, very exciting scenes. The effects are very, very good, given what I think is probably a very meager budget.
Yeah.
The script is pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
It has a lot of the thing that always annoys me about a lot of horror films is where scenes are written to get you to the big exciting scene. Yeah. And so characters do illogical shit that doesn't make sense purely so you can get to the big exciting thing. And this film is, start to finish, it's replete with that shit. And I know Paul's going to hate me about it because, spoilers, he's a massive arachnophobe. So the scary scenes in this really resonated with him. I don't have a problem with spiders. I can pick up spiders on my hand. It doesn't bother me. That cockroaches, I will fucking run for the hills. Spiders, I can pick them up. It doesn't bother me. So eight-legged freaks, arachnophobia, all that shit, I enjoyed it almost at a comedic level. I'm never going to be scared just by the appearance of a spider. So I was probably far more critical of this film than most people would be, because most people sensibly think spiders are scary as shit. But for what I think is a directorial debut and a very meager budget, I think it looks pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I would encourage everyone to watch it if you like horror films, just to support the filmmakers. It's not a bad film. It's a good film. It's just not perfect.
Yeah, nice.
I'll
check it out and I'll report
7 out
back.
of 10 or something.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth watching it. I'd be interested to know what you think, because Jason liked it a lot.
Yep.
Paul loved it. Maybe I'm just in a critical minority who it didn't resonate as much with. Yeah. But I did think it was good. But one thing I will also recommend is Dead Boys Detective Agency.
Okay.
Which is another kind of, I don't know what you call them these days, where it's only like 6 or 8 episodes, but there's probably going to be future seasons. It's kind of like the British model, but they're doing it in America, where you've got the limited run, like Sandman, which is the logical link because the characters came out of Sandman.
Oh, okay.
So Dead Boys Detective Agency is 2 ghosts. The characters were created out of the Sandman comic series. They appeared in the Doom Patrol TV series recently, and they now have their own kind of spin-off TV limited series. So it's 2 ghosts, one of whom died in I think the early 1900s or late 1800s, one of whom died in like the 1950s or something, 60s, whatever, a bit younger. And they have a detective agency where they solve mysteries involving the undead so that
That
souls
sounds very
can pass
cool.
on to
That's
the
right
afterlife.
up my alley.
So it's cool premise, very Neil Gaiman, obviously, who created the characters. The show is not made by the production company behind Sandman.
Yep. So are they linked at
There
all?
are
Have these characters appeared in Sandman?
Well, it's very complicated. So you have in a cameo in, I think, the first episode, you have the actress who played Death in Sandman playing
okay.
Death again.
Yeah.
So it is the same world.
Yeah.
It's not the same actors playing the dead boys that were in Doom Patrol, but I think Greg Berlanti, who's kind of like the DC Warner Brothers TV show overlord, I think he is maybe an executive producer or something on this show. So there's sort of a tie to that Doom Patrol, Flash universe, whatever. So it's all a bit tenuous, but the official Sandman social accounts have definitely been posting about this show.
Yeah.
So I think the stronger links are with Sandman than with Doom Patrol, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
But it's a good show.
It sounds right up my alley. The concept.
These two ghosts, and then there's a living psychic African American woman that they kind of team up with, and they make a sort of a triumvirate. Who then it's kind of a monster of the week format, but there is no more than one. There's more than one overarching storyline that carry all the way through to the end, and then the series ends with a lot of stuff still to come. And I believe it's been renewed, so there is more to come. I would recommend, if you liked Sandman, this is a wonderful kind of interlude until Sandman season 2 arrives.
Nice.
And I'm very hopeful that Sandman season 2 will kind of envelop this, and the two of them will kind of coexist in the same universe.
Nice.
So, yeah, Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix, super free. Don't need to pay for it. Go for it.
Nice. All right. Well, that is it from us. Next week, we will be getting to some apes riding horses and shit, because Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is coming out, and I could not be more excited.
I was going to say, we're a bit keen for that film.
Yeah. So that's next week. In the meantime, go check out everything we've mentioned, movie reviews in 20 Qs.
Pottymouthradio.com.
Yeah, Time to Die, dropping tomorrow. Hunt for the Perfect Album. As Dave said, it's all at pottymouthradio.com. So go and check all that out. We love each and every one of you. If you do want to help support Pottymouth Radio, you can do that at patreon.com/pottymouthradio.
Head on over to Patreon.
That's right.
We're like about something like 9 years in advance on Hunt for the Perfect Album by now.
Yeah. Time to Die, you can check out early episodes.
Fucking ripe shit in that show. There's some good music.
And go listen to me and Noosk talk Friends as well over on the one where we watched.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll catch you next week.